today we're going to be doing this wood. And you know, the nice thing about this is it's not difficult, it's not hard, and it's actually very fast. There are different woods that you can use. This wood in particular is Sapele. It's kind of a dark wood. Doesn't really matter the color. What we're really concerned with is the grain that we can get out of this. Because let's see if we can get this thing to refocus real quick. That is what we're able to do when we're working with the grain and we concentrate on getting the grain. I want a very well weathered, let's see if we can go down to the sill here. I want a very well weathered, sun-beaten, wind, maybe sand and dirt blown surface. And how I achieve that is using a wire wheel. I use a very aggressive wire wheel to impart this grain on here. And it stands out like barn wood. And that's really why I do it. I want to get that, I'm going to try to keep this thing focused. I want to get that barn wood look. The first thing I want to do is also talk about the different woods, like I said. This is Sapele. It's a type of hardwood, mahogany. It's actually, I don't think it's quite a tonal wood, meaning that it's so dense that it'll, you know, you can do a musical instrument out of it. But it is quite dense. It's also, even though the general grain is going this way, it has a bit of a wave to its grain. It's a very interesting grain. It's also, you know, you've got the grain and then you've got the softwood between the grain. Well, the softwood in this is still pretty darn hard. And that is something that you're going to notice as we look at these different woods. That varies quite a bit. Okay, so the next one I'm going to look at, and this is, again, readily available. This is Hemlock. And what this is a nice medium density wood. It is not as hard as like oak or something like that, or certainly Sapele, but it also has a nice distinct grain. You could indent it with your thumb pretty dramatically. Let me see if I can get that in focus. So it is a softer wood, but I think actually this is a great solution for what we're trying to do. Now in the hobby industry, of course, these are very readily available. This is basswood, and basswood, again, is about the same density. It's a little bit, and I don't have any scientific data, MSDS sheets or anything like that to give you on these, but it's about the same density and strength as this, a little bit softer. Again, you can go in here and you can place an indent in there with your thumb pretty easily. It's not hard to, you know, put a mark in the wood. But there's not a lot of distinctive grain. I mean, it's just almost a blank piece. Now, that's one of the great properties about basswood. For carving, it's great because you can bring your knife in different angles and stuff, and you're typically not going to catch and raise and split out grain. So it's a wonderful carving wood, but what we're looking for, remember, is this kind of rough and pitted and texture that we can translate, okay? And we're going to overdo it, you know? And the reason we're going to overdo it is because we want to really get that message out. So that is basswood. Now the last one is balsa. You know, now balsa is actually quite good wood. I mean, gosh, balsa wood is a fantastic wood. But what I'm going to do to it, it's not going to hold up very well, but it may be what you want to use for your diorama, for your situation, for whatever accent you're creating. And that's why I wanted to do all of these woods. I wanted to give you a fair example of what the different processes that I do look on each of these. Being a woodworker, I have an affinity towards wood. I understand how it works. I like working with it. And I believe that I can compete, not in a competitive means. I meant in just side by side looking at it. I think I can do pretty darn good with wood. And I like that. I think it is challenging. It seems odd to say, you know, I'm using wood and I'm going to try my darndest to make it look like wood. But the fact is that, you know, when you start using all these different techniques and stuff like that, a lot of times you will lose some of the properties. That doesn't take away from my love of working with this material and the knowledge that I have with it. It's also a point of available material. I have a heck of a lot of wood. It's no joke. It literally is, when I'm looking at what I'm going to build, you know, if plastic's going to work great, but I got to go buy it. And it's not expensive. You know, it's part of the hobby. It's certainly doable. But I don't have to go anywhere, and I got all this. And I know how to work it. First things I do is I get it dimensionally to the size I want to get it to. And the reason is this. Here, I want to, let me see if I can get that in there. I want to get this weathered on all sides. If I process this piece of wood thick and then cut off, the bottom has no weathering. So I'm going to cut these down to size. So I'm going to take each of these and cut them to the size that I'm going to use. So here's my video setup. I got a vacuum back there. And this is also for dust. I want to try to capture that dust. I was doing this earlier and I had a heck of a reaction to some of this sawdust. I did not like it. It's allergy season. Got a second light there. I've got a big light there. And then there's another camera there. So I was able to shoot this whole thing with 2 angles. And I think that should help in demonstrating how we work with this wood and age it and stuff. So What I'm doing now is just putting a little bit of wash on here and see how the wash is going to react to these deep pits that we've created in the wood. I don't think it's going to be the end of the paint here, but I wanted to get this on here. I'm going to set these aside to dry, and then I'm going to take the two pieces, the bass and the balsa wood, and try to do some hand etching of that grain. This is a saw blade. It's like a little, saw hand blade. And I'm going to see if I can get some texture on here instead of using the wire wheel. So I'm going to try this. I'm going to try my wire brushes, but I think this might do us pretty good. I've done this before. So I'm literally just scraping, and I'm not doing it carefully. I'm turning it and twisting it when I do it, because if I keep it like this, they're all going to be that same space, all the little cuts will be the same space as the teeth. But if I twist it, then that closes up the spaces between them. So as I'm doing it, I'm kind of turning it and trying to get a different kind of effect with it. And you'll notice, it cuts it up pretty good. Well, that's the same thing happens when the wire wheel. It's just that, I had the vacuum. So now I'm going to do just a quick sanding. I don't want to take off the detail. What I want to take off is the fuzz. So let's do that real quick. I'm just going to take, this is a medium 100 grit. And I'm not bearing down. I'm just trying to get rid of the fuzz on top of it. Just real carefully. That's it, So that, I think, has some fair grain on it now from this. So now we're going to move to balsa wood. This was basswood. Now we're going to do balsa wood. Same process. I've got a different saw to see if I can try that. And same process. I'm just kind of scraping it along there, trying to raise up the grain. I don't think that's aggressive enough. I'm going to try to do this one. I think it's more aggressive. And again, I can just real lightly go over that. Okay, so we're going to paint those just like we did the other sides and see what we can do with just saw blades. Now, I'm not adding a lot of water to this paint. The reason is the water can get into the wood and make the wood swell and deform and all that kind of stuff. And in some instances, that's really, nice to have. But I don't want that. I just want the paint to get in there, seal it off, and give us a nice background to continue our dry brushing. So this has to dry completely. Luckily, I have a curing cabinet. Makes it go nice and fast. I don't have to wait overnight, but you do want to wait overnight if you don't have something like that. You do not want to try to dry brush with any paint wet. When we're doing texturing, it's really easy for the high texturing, the stuff on the high ridges of the texture to get dry, but the things in the little gullies or in the little recesses not to dry. And so that's why you just have to take extra care. If you don't wait, then you just muddy all of your detail. I need a black, dry surface, or dark brown, and then I need a dry brush over the top of it to get contrast. So that's really important. Here, you remember when we did this? Very dark on the bottom. Then we went with the high contrast with the brushing, and that's what we get. So we're going to stick this into the drying cabinet, and we'll take a look at it later. Man, I can see it, but it's so fine that you can hardly see the grain, and heck, maybe that's the trick. Maybe you only want to see it like that, but I think it's too little. So what I'm going to try here is I'm going to come in with my steel brush and see if I can pull some of that lint out of there. Yeah, I'm not thinking that's the way to go. Yes, I'm getting grain in there, and yes, we can do, some nice detail painting and get a good board look out of that. That's not the question. It is, can I make it look like a highly weathered board, which is what I'm going for. So yeah, it's I think it's valuable. It's a different look and not the one I'm looking for. Now, variability is nice, having this and that on the same, if you're siding or something like that. Okay, fair point. But I think that is something I on the outside. Maybe this is an interior. We'll see. We're gonna do a little more with it. I want to get a little bit more of this on it. I'm going to really go across like this to try to not put anything down in that grain, because I can see some nice grain here, and I'll take some tight shots of these to kind of give the comparison. But I'm going to try to just get right across the tops to bring out the tops of that grain. Think of it like the grooves on a record. Well, that's not going to work because young folks don't understand what a record is these days. But what I'm trying to do here is I'm just trying to, there are just little valleys and peaks, and I just want to put snow on the peaks, and leave the valleys dark. And so there you go. We're gonna let that dry, and I'm gonna take some pictures, and we'll take a tight and close-up look at all the results so far. We still got a long ways to go. Okay, so here I'm just trying to add a little bit of color. I wanted to see how well the two pieces that I did, just the manual kind of scratching, trying to get a little bit of grain in that surface. I want to see how they would, accept paint and stuff like that. They actually came out really nice. But as you see what I'm doing here, and I'm just taking my time, I'm really trying to build up colors. This is not the color I want on there. This is like 3 colors below what I want on there. And I think that's one of the things that really helped me figuring out how to use washes effectively. The color that you initially put on is going to be pretty bright. Then it's going to dull up, but it will show through other colors that you add after. So yeah, building layers of color is really important. So that's what I did on these bolt heads. So I'll zip through a little bit of this. I'll show you the paints that I use, but I go back and forth with them to go ahead and add colors to this area and get a little bit more character out of this wood. So now it's not the last color, but pretty much I'm using white to highlight changes in depth of the board. So the ends of these boards, they kind of stick up a little bit. And then I want to simulate maybe some cracking on the edges of the boards. There's some very fine lines in there that I've hit with the black already. So then opposite that, I will go ahead and put a little bit of white. That will more than highlight, it'll actually represent a change in level so that the white will seem to be closer to you, the black a little bit further away, and it'll give us a little bit more depth. So I'll finish these off and we'll take a look at some pictures at the end. I have to say I like those. Initially, I didn't think I was going to like the hand-done boards, but I really do like them. They're not as aggressive as the ones that we used on the power wire wheel here. And these are really what I want to, go after with this particular model. But those other boards you can see right next to them, they do look really well and certainly usable. So Next, we're going to take these and we're going to see how we add other details like debris and sand and dirt and rock and maybe some twigs, how you take this and put it into a scene so that it looks natural and part of an existing diorama scene.